Hello! And welcome to Lot 49 of Modern Media Review, the podcast that's going all out to get a decent criminal record before Brexit kicks in. I'm Robin Gibson.
And I'm Sean Gollogly.
And first off, Sean, you've got to thank the UK's law-breaking government for providing so much material to review, haven't you? Otherwise you'd be back in the cycle of going to the pictures and covering the latest shit Hollywood biopic of some 70s pop star.
That is true, Robin, but that said, and well, along those lines, I guess, perhaps Cummings and Bojo have been playing some old school British heavy metal in their Bose headphones, a la Judas Priest perhaps, and perhaps they've been inspired by their seminal track, Breaking the Law.
Well, I think you'll find that's not old school British heavy metal, Sean. It's called Nwobble. New wave of British heavy metal. But, that Judas Priest track's exactly what I thought of when I saw the headline in the Independent the other day, Breaking the Law.
Robin, I'm impressed you've kept the faith, and not just because you've reprised a great 80s acronym, new wave of British heavy metal, but actually you're still reading the Independent, albeit since it went into the white noise of the digital world.
Well, that's how you get the news now, isn't it? Or if they still get those travelling puppet shows and privately funded pamphlets round your way. Anyway, I don't know, but I've got the internet here. Breaking the Law, ever since the news came, I can't get the song out of my head, but did you ever actually listen to it? Most folk only know the chorus. It's a real social commentary. It's like, there I was, wasted, out of work and down. It's all frustrating as I drift from town to town. Nobody cares if I live or die. Might as well begin to put some action in my life, breaking the law. So it's a searing social commentary.
Wow.
Which makes me think that the priest might be a good subject for one of these Hollywood biopics. And I looked it up. They've got an album called British Steel, which is a great title for a film, innit? Priti Patel could play Rob Halford.
Except, whilst Rob Halford was suggesting solidarity and talking about British steel, I think Priti would be more interested in maybe selling off anything valuable that's British to all comers.
Yeah.
And then also, the worst thing about Priti is that she'd then be grassing up her neighbours. She'd be grassing them up for inviting Granny's cousins to Granny's 80th birthday lunch. I mean, there is no joy in +6 for Priti. Put it this way, Robin. Would you like to live next door to Priti?
No.
No, because you can imagine. I mean, do people still have net curtains?
Yes, I've seen them in my street.
Okay, well, you can just imagine Priti twitching the net curtains, making lists of offenders in her little notebook. And I guarantee you that in her little notebook, she's writing in green ink. Isn't it so like, and this is a favourite film of mine, The Lives of Others?
Yeah.
Classic movie about how the East German Stasi infiltrated every aspect of their citizens' lives and then, by grassing on them, ruined their lives. I rest my case. I mean, we're going to go on to specific laws and all the rest of it, but this is something totally randomly specific. Does that make it non-specific?
I don't know. You've confused me there with the specifics of your argument. I'm more thinking about who would be... I mean, Judas Priest maybe, but who would have been next in that run of music films? Because I don't think... Queen and Elton John were a bit too intellectual. I think that it should be the B-League of glam from the 70s that gets examined by Hollywood next. I think a biopic of someone like Mud would be interesting. Not enough people know the story of Mud. I bet you don't even know where they came from.
Well, just hold on a second there, Robin, because I think you'll actually find that me, that was born and bred in Banstead, not too far away from Carshalton, mate, the rock and roll heart of Carshalton, is where Mud came from.
The Surrey Delta, yeah.
Yeah. And do you know this? I actually bought Mud Rock Volume 2.
Oh, really?
Which was, well, yeah, I did. I was young, foolish, but it was a disappointing because the only lead single was Oh Boy.
It was disappointing because Oh Boy was that terrible a cappella version, wasn't it? But I also bought Mud Rock 2.
No way.
And it's actually, a better album than Mud Rock, the first one. It's got a brilliant version of Tobacco Road.
Mind you, Robin, when you had Mud Rock Volume 2, did that sit alongside The Crass?
I think it came out a few years earlier.
But in your record collection?
No, I didn't. I don't think I think I gave it to someone younger. I was going to say, Gary Glitter, he'd also be a good biopic, wouldn't he?
Oof.
And he definitely broke the law in a very specific way. And it's government policy now.
Yes, yeah. Well, Tory MP Charlie Elphick has broken the law in quite a specific way. He's been found guilty of 3 sexual assaults against 2 women. And super sure it was limited.
Oh, and, you can't be sure it was limited. These are only the ones they found out about.
But why can't he get his ex-colleagues to say, as they voted in Parliament the other night, that yes, this is breaking the law, and breaking the law is okay if we say it's okay. It'll be interesting to see whether your local Crown Court will see this new defence of breaking the law in a specific but limited way making a splash. For instance, okay, Your Honour, I may be up for mugging, but I only broke the criminal law in a very specific way. And I call Boris Johnson, Michael Gove, Chris Grayling, Matt Hancock, Priti Patel, Dominic Raab, Rishi Sunak et al. As character witnesses.
Yes, that might work.
Ooh, mind you, would it? Because with such an unprincipled rogues gallery, could you see any jury letting me off?
Well, the thing is, talking of rogues, Sean, I've got to say that from where I'm sitting at the moment, which is in Scotland, I'm looking across the border at something of a rogue state. I'd call it a broken biscuit republic, ruled by a teapot dictator.
Ooh, maybe a teapot dictator, but what about a red wine dictatorship?
Well, I'm not sure who's doing the red wine dictating here. As for their ideas about breaking the law, you've got to suspect the hand of Cummings and all this.
Always.
And if they can break the law in a very specific and limited way, so can we, can't we? And that means all their Joy of 6 rules and COVID marshals, and who's going to volunteer to be a COVID marshal, can be flouted, ignored, possibly even kicked in a very specific and limited way, can't they? Yeah,
it was interesting that Boris was so strident in his determination to uphold the Joy of 6. I still have problems with this because we're both guilty here of that culturally out-of-date sub-editor's cliche, aren't we?
I know. I talk of being out of date. Right? The whole thing's beginning to remind me of that Woody Allen farce, Bananas. Do you know the one?
Yeah, I like that.
Where he's in South America as the leader and he hands down these decrees that everyone has to speak Swedish and wear their underpants on the outside of their trousers. I mean, if these things seem crazy enough, everyone's just going to ignore it. And thus, the government will get their herd immunity even if there's danger of death, our favourite slogan. Talking of which, danger of death, I've been watching the new Dennis Nilsen TV show.
Ooh.
He's a great host. No, seriously. It's weird in general. People in Britain seem to be obsessed with crime. I mean, they love watching it, don't they? Go around someone's house and put a brick through their window, they're straight on the phone to the police, aren't they? They want you to stop. They don't really enjoy all this crime.
Well, hold on a minute, Robin. You've just been watching this Dennis Nilsen thing.
Well, yeah, but when it comes down to killers, they're very keen on these pasty-faced, uninteresting serial killers. They absolutely love that. I watched that Yorkshire Ripper thing, on BBC 2 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I did.
And everyone was sort of thrilled when he turned out to be normal, in inverted commas. They love that. It's weird, isn't it? They prefer politicians to be outlandish weirdos, but they like the killers to be sort of drab technocrats, like we'd be better off with running the country.
This is outrageous.
I mean, not the killers running the country, but drab technocrats like Gordon Brown and Ken Livingstone. People who know how the machinery operates. They don't kill anyone with it.
You have actually thought about this, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Now we've got Dennis Nilsen, another pasty-faced technocrat. Brilliant performance, by the way, from David Tennant. I think he's limbering up for his next role in another of the music biopics. I think it's about Bobby Gillespie and it'll be called One-Man Glaring Sarcastic Suicide Bomb Fan Club. Something like that. I think maybe they could have made the Nilsen thing a musical. It's a bit dry, isn't it, without songs? They could call it Come On Over to My Place.
Oh.
That was the Drifters, wasn't it? Which, interestingly, is what his victims were.
This is very hard stuff, Robin.
Even more interesting. Breaking the Law was released in 1980, right in the middle of Dennis Nilsen's spree.
I sense a conspiracy here.
He did have a job, though. But he did drift from town to town. They should have put it on the soundtrack.
Okay, this is... And God forgive me, this is terrible. But it's your fault you've led me into it because you've got me thinking about West End musicals and, in a specific way, what about Cockney Rebel?
What, Judy Teen? Something like that?
No, the more obvious one. No, I'm suggesting come up and see me. Make me smile.
Right.
Is that horrendous?
Pretty horrendous, yeah.
Well, it would have made Nilsen smile, I guess.
Well, anything made him smile, apparently.
Well, it's a guaranteed West End hit, because no one gives an arse about the storyline. They just like a good tune, Robin.
Yeah.
And if we really want to go down that road of specific, really bad taste songs and morals, what about First Cut is the Deepest by Rod Stewart?
Yeah,
is
that's
that too much?
That's a bit too much.
Well, hang on. In this current world, I'm a Guardian reader. You're a Guardian reader. We can say outrageous things, Robin, because if somebody accuses us of anything, we go, no, I'm postmodern.
I've got to say, yesterday, I was clearing out a cellar and then
Dangerous.
sawing up wood in my neighbour's back garden so they could stuff it in the bin beneath the rubbish. I know it's only wood, but it's a bit uncanny, isn't it? I was innocent. I wasn't breaking the law. Apart from maybe...
No bodies involved, no?
Well, there's probably rules about the bins, isn't there?
No bodies in bins.
Dispose of timber separately. Anyway, it does appear that the ex-PMs have now stepped into the breaking the law argument, doesn't it? Not about bins, but Cameron and Blair. I mean, do they never learn? Blair would need a pretty big bin to stuff his bodies in, wouldn't he?
I think that pair would have as much sway on a jury as some of the crims we've mentioned, do you know what I mean? Because it's like, I don't know about Tony Blair and Cameron and the rest of them. It's almost like they've soiled themselves. And they can't help returning to the scene of their crimes.
Yes.
Perhaps it might have worked when Nanny was there to wipe their backsides, but surely those days are gone. And what they need to learn is that apart from their acolytes, who they're probably paying, like their paid mates, who don't want to get off the gravy train, there's a not-so-silent majority of the country who wouldn't trust them to buy, I don't know, Robin, a dozen eggs?
No. Who buys a dozen eggs? Don't people buy 6? Anyway, I heard Blair on LBC the other night, actually, because he was in the first episode of Scottish Tory hero Ruth Davidson's new show. And he's still got that weird thing of, he sounds like he's talking sense until you realise that what he infers by his sense is that everyone else is mad. It's like, it's not that I'm talking sense, it's that I'm the only sane one. Which, is that not by definition insanity?
Well, talking about insanity, why don't we plug to our readers and listeners?
Yes, well, we should stop because it's getting out of control. What is in control is where you can listen to us. Well, that's quite out of control as well, because not only are we on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, we're on virtually every podcast platform.
I'm very impressed by us, Robin.
Yeah, but it's not really any of our work. It just gets there by this weird internet osmosis. But we're all over the place, so just search Modern Media Review on any of your podcast apps and you should find us. I'm hoping so. And we've also got a website, modernmediareview.com, and we've got a Twitter account. That's not very interesting. And there's a Facebook page, so you can go there if you like that sort of thing.
Have we got Insta?
We don't do Instagram. That's more of a visual thing. We're not the right profile for Instagram. But yeah, do listen, and please, leave a review if you like what you hear, or give us a like, or share it with your friends. Because it's all about sharing, isn't it?
COVID's told us that, Robin.
Yeah, that's the plug-in done.
Good-o. So, I'm quite intrigued by your mention of the 3-word thing, which we both love. 3-word slogans, which the government are so good about. What about this theme of danger of death?
Yeah, well, we did have that before, didn't we?
I've been looking at the clashes between Black Lives Matter and Make America Great Again mobs.
Yeah, I've noticed that, yeah. There's been a bit of news about that in the media, hasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, when is it a good idea that a 17-year-old kid with an AR-15 assault rifle is going to work well for you? Can you imagine what your local disco would have looked like, Robin, in our day, if we'd all had assault rifles?
Well, it's a bit far removed from sniffing glue and smashing up phone boxes, isn't it?
So you'd have a 17-year-old, he'd neck a pint of lager, get absolutely off his face and all hot and bothered about some bloke staring at his bird and or pint. The place would have looked like an abattoir, man.
Yes.
And I have to admit here that I did watch one of these docs, like you watching the Dennis Nilsen thing. I was watching a documentary about mass murder in the USA. It was that one, and it is awful. I mean, it was...
Well, are some of them good?
Well, here's the thing, that if you actually search it on Google, they rate them on most killings. And this one, at its time, was the biggest killing in US history. And it was in a cinema in Aurora, Colorado. And I won't name the shooter because he's a little scrote that doesn't deserve a mention, to be frank. But the fact is that he went out and bought an AR-15 assault rifle. Not only that, but he also got a shotgun and a 9mm Glock handgun. And interestingly, in the weeks before this mass murder, he was able to buy thousands of rounds of ammo, including, Robin, believe it or not, armour-piercing bullets.
It's hard to carry all that stuff home in one go.
Well, I mean, no problem there. So when you pop into your local over-the-counter armour-piercing bullet supplier, he says, "Oh, what are you thinking of buying this for? Shooting some squirrels?" I totally respect the Second Amendment right to blow folks away at a movie show.
But we don't need amendments and things like that here, do we? We've got 3-word slogans. The latest one, hands, face, space.
I like that.
Is the one that we're meant to be observing. Now, Johnson tried hands, face, space a few weeks ago, didn't he? He gestured with his hands, face, and then he made a space gesture. But it never caught on. But now they've re-released it, haven't they, with a big budget and graphics. Like one of those records that flops the first time round.
What's the biggest one, do you think?
Well, there's loads of them. But a good one for us, because we've covered them in detail, is Bros, isn't it? I Owe You Nothing.
Yes.
Because it was a total stiff when they put it. It only got to number 80 or something when they originally released it.
Absolutely.
And then they had one other hit, so then they brought back I Owe You Nothing, which ended up being their only number one.
And it was a great song.
Do you think I just know all that? I looked it up.
I'm guessing you may have looked it up, yeah.
The problem is with hands, face, spaces that I don't think it'll be a hit this time round either. Not unless they re-release it with a gimmick, like a free badge or something like that.
Well, put it this way, what if they put I Owe You Nothing on the B-side?
Did you know, it's not just pop records and government slogans this happens with. I understand it when Da Vinci put out the Mona Lisa first time round. Nobody liked it. He had to do a load of proper smiley faces to really get into the charts. And then he put it out again, and now they all call it his masterpiece. And it's probably his only number one, isn't it, in the art chart?
I think it is. It definitely was the re-release of that enigmatic face. I'm feeling that you're not loving our British culture this week, Robin, because especially in the week where we celebrated victory in the Battle of Britain.
Yes, I know about that, because I've already got 2 free pullouts already this year from the Daily Express. They put one out on the 10th of July, Battle of Britain pullout, and one on September the 12th, the other day. They're spraying them around like machine gun fire out of a Messerschmitt.
Oh, I do like Messerschmitts, because this is a hobby horse for me and for us, actually, because...
Is it?
Well, yeah, I love the sound of Junkers and Heinkels above my head, but Messerschmitts is adding to it, Robin, because it was a bit remiss of us not to mention the Messerschmitt ME 109. And although it wasn't quite the match for our Spitfire in the Battle of Britain...
Just as well, by the way, before anyone gets the wrong idea.
Yes, but there was just one thing on this whole Battle of Britain thing and Brexit. I didn't buy both those pullouts.
Neither did I. I just saw them online.
I actually did buy them. Only to hear that our world-class track and trace app... Am I a bit tangential here?
Well, it doesn't exist, does it?
Well, it does. Boris said it's world-class. But apparently, it's a failure. And also, worse than worse, we've had to go cap in hand to the bloody Jerry's.
Yeah, all right.
Listen, I didn't vote Brexit or buy my Battle of Britain anniversary sovereign from Franklin Mint for all that.
Well, yeah, you know that irony doesn't always come across in the world of pre-recorded audio. Anyway, all this stuff about dealing with the foreigners is no problem now, because we've hired Tony Abbott, haven't we?
Ooh.
We've got him doing the stuff. I mean, you or I might have thought he was a right-wing, racist, misogynist, blundering moron. That someone from Australia recently wrote a piece in one of the papers saying, if you think Tony Abbott's the answer, you've got problems. But at the moment, he seems moderately sane compared to everyone else. He could be a great ambassador like Adele. He could sort of assuage his, opposite numbers' fears by wearing, bikinis with the country's flag and ethnic hairstyle or something like that. You know.
What, Bantu knots?
Yeah, he could black up. Show his understanding of sensitive issues. I think it'll be great. I don't think we can go any further than Tony Abbott. It's a long way to go, isn't it?
It is, and I'm just thankful that it was you, not me, that said right-wing, racist, sexist moron.
That's just fair comment. And I only said think he is. I don't have any definitive proof, but what I have got definitive proof of is that it's...
We're coming to the end.
It's 15:21, to give a time check there.
I like that.
It's a mid-afternoon podcast, which sounds a bit Alan Partridge, doesn't it? But it's just our mid-afternoon podcast.
Well, that's our slot, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, we will be back in mid-afternoon in a couple of weeks' time, won't we, to review something else. But probably the same stuff, because there aren't any films coming out. There's only been one film released this year, hasn't there?
What was that?
Tenet, in it. That's what I call it, Tenet, in it.
I've not even seen this.
It's a big blockbuster, mate.
Well, so blockbusterish that I've not seen it.
You're usually well up with these things. That's a new film that's out, but how are you going to go and see it?
With the joy of 6.
You're going to go and see it. You're going to have a seat next to you taped off.
I think I'm going to go and watch it with Priti Patel, and she'll be writing in a green ink, who is also there and should be jailed.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'm not going to go and see any films at all or do anything for the rest of the year.
No, you've inspired me, Robin. I'm just about to phone up Cameron McIntosh.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to suggest to him that we do greatest serial killers of the 20th century to music.
Yeah.
And we're going to do Dennis Nilsen.
I think you'll find that Spinal Tap got there first, mate.
Okay.
Didn't they do a song suite or mini rock opera about Jack the Ripper called Naughty Jack? Or Dirty Jack or something like that? I'm going to look this up and check it. Spinal Tap. Saucy Jack it was called. Spinal Tap. Spinal Tap got there first. A clever song about Jack the Ripper called Saucy Jack. You're a naughty one, Saucy Jack. You're a haughty one, Saucy Jack.
So once again, I'm just derivative.
When the streetlight gas light flickers, this site uses cookies. That's a terrible fourth line there, isn't it? This site uses cookies. Stop me in my tracks there, and I think that's what we should do. Stop in our track and say, thanks very much for listening.
Absolutely.
And yes, it took you a while to agree with that one, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
And we'll speak to you again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for listening.
So goodbye for now, and goodbye till then. Bye.